Welcome to the inaugural Heminger Business Ethics Lecture, a series endowed through the generosity of the Heminger family in honor of Ed Heminger, the former editor and publisher of the Findlay Courier newspaper and chairman of the board of Findlay Publishing Company. In a recent article in the Chronicle of Higher Education, Donna Sokell, the executive director of the Center for Education on Social Responsibility at the University of Colorado at Boulder, argues that business schools need to do a better job of developing students' ability to discover and apply values to their personal and professional lives. She argues that business schools need to profess new ways of thinking about concepts of corporate social responsibility that go well beyond public relations and unvarnished self-interest. This lecture and the Business Ethics Lecture Series, which it launches, is our attempt to do just that. Our inaugural speaker this afternoon is Dr. Julius Coles, the interim director of the Andrew Young Center for Global Leadership at Morehouse College in Atlanta. Dr. Coles spent 28 years in the United States Foreign Service as a senior official with the Agency for International Development. After retiring from the Foreign Service with the rank of career minister, Dr. Coles served as president of AfriCare, an African-American NGO or non-governmental organization, from 2002 to 2009. He received his BA from Morehouse College in 1964 and a Master's of Public Affairs from Princeton University's Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs in 1966. He also received an honorary doctorate from the University of Findlay in 2012 for his work with the university on its Trans-Saharan Professional Exchange Program in Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Niger, and Senegal in Africa. He is a member of the boards of the African Development Foundation, the Academy for Educational Development, and Princeton University's Woodrow Wilson School, as well as several other organizations. For his outstanding contributions to helping improve the lives of peoples in some of the poorest countries on earth, he has been awarded the James Madison Medal from Princeton, the Princeton in Africa Lifetime Achievement Award, the Amistad Achievement Award, the Distinguished Career Service Award, the Presidential Meritorious Service Award, and was decorated by the President of Senegal as a Commander in the Order of the Lion. Corporate social responsibility ought to be more than a synonym for philanthropy, legal compliance, and taking up only the most visible causes. Let us begin now to profess new ways of thinking about concepts of corporate social responsibility that go well beyond public relations and unvarnished self-interest. Dr. Coles.
Thank you, Dr. Sears, and for a very generous introduction. My God, that must be another individual. It can't be me. I want to thank Dr. Fell for coming and honoring me with her presence today. It is really indeed an honor to be back to Findlay, and I do consider it to be a Findlay graduate since I was honored at the last graduation with the honorary Doctorate of International Relations, and I am really very honored to be back at this institution. This is my third visit back, and I feel very much at home at this institution, and I hope that the relationship that we have established will continue. I have the utmost respect for this institution and what its graduates and its students are achieving and have achieved. Thank you for the opportunity to come back. I also want to thank the donor, Mr. Heminger, for all that you have done, because I think that this is a very important subject and one that is not dealt with very often in the academic community. Very often, having served most of my career in the federal government, we get a lot of ethics training. Ethics, 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 ethics. And the government makes it known that it is very serious how its employees respond and conduct themselves, especially in exercising the public trust. And in that vein, having spent some 28 years in the federal government, there was always the norm that there was zero tolerance for fraud, malfeasance, and misappropriation of funds, misuse of funds, even if that was not your intent. You only had to show negligence in some regard, or show that you may not have intended to do that, but your actions resulted in an inappropriate action, and you still are convicted of the crime. And I guess a lot of people are not aware that the federal government has a series of internal inspections of what we call our internal police force. And these people are auditors, and they are sometimes former agents of the U.S. Federal Services, and they're investigating complaints all the time about malfeasance and fraud and things of this nature among its employees and in people that the U.S. government gives grants. And there's an expression, the appearance of an act, not even conducting the act, the appearance of an act can get you into trouble and into jail. So this strict standard that I was raised up in the federal government is something that has stayed with me most of my life. And having served on the boards of organizations who are doing social good, I have also undergone their ethics training. Everybody's ethics training, ethics training, ethics training. And even though I've served on the board of a U.S. government foundation, again, every year we're required to undergo ethics training. Even with all of this training, people get into difficulty. And I'd like to give an example of a company that was perhaps one of the best companies operating in the development field in some maybe 22 countries around the world. Dr. Sayers introduced me as being on the board of an organization called the Academy for Educational Development. That is an organization that I joined the board of because I felt that it was one of the best and most well-staffed development organizations that AID had contracted with to work around the world. So when I was asked after I left the federal government to join the board, I did so without any hesitation. Lo and behold, the first board meeting that I attend, the major discussion deals with the whole question of a possible ethics violation. Now here was a quality company with more than $500 million in U.S. government contracts being brought under scrutiny for possible ethics violations. And here I am, coming out of the blue, dumb, not knowledgeable, joining the board of the organization that's beginning to get itself in trouble with the federal government. I cite this example because it's a very important example. That the U.S. government decided that this organization would be used as an example for all NGOs and corporations working with the U.S. government, that no matter how big you are, you can be taken down. And rather than working with this organization and seeing how it could correct some of its problems, and there were real problems that can be admitted to, the U.S. government really went after this organization in every way possible to let it serve as an example. Now, what was one of the problems, which was very serious? The real problem was serious was that when you were working in a foreign environment, and they were working in Afghanistan and Pakistan and different parts of the world, some of their employees had embezzled U.S. government funds, and they had gone in and done an internal audit and proving that this embezzlement was going on. Rather than reporting this embezzlement to the U.S. government and saying, let us work together to take care of the problem, the leadership of the organization unfortunately made the wrong decision. It made the decision to cover it up. And that in the U.S. government is a no-no. You do not cover up malfeasance. That was a serious ethical violation. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen often, that people have a tendency to try to cover up badness or ill good in society or faults that they do. From time to time, we all do that. But when you're dealing with public funds of the U.S. government, you don't do that. Because if you're covering something up, that means that you is just as guilty as the person who committed the act. And so this $500 million organization is taken under by the U.S. government. There was nothing that the organization could do to turn the situation around. Nothing. We would say we would give them back the money, we would hire new employees, we would do everything that the U.S. government wanted to do. And the U.S. government said, we don't care what you want to do or how you plan to do it. You're going to be dissolved. And for the past 3 years, I've been working on the dissolution of that company, that it doesn't exist anymore. $500 million company taken under because of bad decisions on the part of the CEO and the leadership of the company. Now that little example is not the topic of my talk today, but I think I was inspired at lunchtime where we talked about this whole question of business ethics, that we often forget that ethical issues are very, very important, and we have to learn the lessons of the past. That the lesson that I want to leave you today is always take the ethical high ground. Never try to cover up things that are not right, because it can cause you more problems in the long run than if you face the issue and deal with it up front. Here's a problem, be honest with the issue, and deal with it. Today's talk is about corporate social responsibility. And that's a very important subject today. But it has not always been a subject that people have dealt with or been concerned about. For those of you who've studied economics, Adam Smith wrote in his famous book, The Wealth of Nations, and I quote, "People of the same trade seldom meet together, even for merriment and diversion. But the conversation ends in a conspiracy against the people, in some contrivance to raise prices." He went on to say, and I quote, "All for ourselves, nothing for other people, seems in every area of the world to have been the right maximum of the master of mankind." As a student myself of economics, my own professor at Morehouse defined capitalism as follows. His name was Dr. E.B. Williams, And his definition of capitalism has always stayed with me because I thought it was a very appropriate definition of capitalism. He says, capitalism is, and I quote, get all you can all you get, and sit on the can and protect it. Sounds familiar? Another economist, Milton Friedman, wrote in an article in the New York Times Magazine entitled "The Social Responsibility of Business is to Increase Its Profits." And I quote, corporate executive responsibility generally will be to make as much money as possible while conforming to their basic rituals of society, both those embodied in law and those embodied in ethical custom. He further stated, the only entities who can have responsibilities are individuals. A business cannot have responsibilities. So the question is, do corporate executives, provided they stay within the law, have responsibilities in their business activities other than those to make as much money to their stockholders as possible? And my answer is that it is no, they do not. So the basic thrust of these great writers has been to get all you can, to make profits for your stockholders. That's what business is all about. What have some of the other people said about this subject? Duska, in an article written of What is Business Ethics, writes that stockholders have the right to expect the business to be ethical. If business has no ethical obligations, other institutions could make the same claim, which would be counterproductive to the corporation. Peter Drucker wrote in an article, what is business ethics in the periodical The Public Interest? That there is neither a separate ethics of business, nor is one needed, which implies that standards of personal ethics cover all business transactions. So I think this is an interesting area. Are businesses different than individuals? Do businesses have different responsibilities and obligations as opposed to what individuals have? Or are they all the same? And I hope at the end of my discussion today that we will come back to this subject because it's a very important one. Are there responsibilities that corporations and businesses have that are different than what individuals have, especially when it comes to the subject of ethical behavior? We are now talking about corporate social responsibility, but when did corporate social responsibility come in vogue? It was only in the 1960s and the 1970s that we started talking about this important subject. So this, looking in time frames, that's not a very long time. And what was going on in the 1960s and the 1970s that might have created this situation? One, we had the civil rights movement going in the United States. Two, we had the Vietnam War going on at that period of time. And these were two great things that really got people organized. They generalized. People became organized to demonstrate against the war. People were demonstrating against segregation in the United States. People were demonstrating against corporations and companies, talking about a social consciousness in our society. So in the 1960s and 70s, people began to think that profit and profit alone, with not taking into account the interests of the community or people as large, could create problems for the organization. And so we began to have companies that began to talk about the terms like corporate social responsibility. But what are some of the other terms that are coming, that came about around the same period of time? They talk about corporate consciousness, corporate citizenship, social performance, or sustainable responsible businesses. So how would we define corporate social responsibility? One definition says it seeks to embrace responsibility for the company's actions and encourages a positive impact through its programs, activities on the environment, consumers, employees, communities, stockholders, and all members of the public that may be considered as stakeholders. Dr. Sayers alluded to one manifestation of corporate social responsibility in terms of the introduction, that corporations are philanthropic, i.e. they give gifts, they give donations, and that's like a traditional type of corporate social responsibility, but one that is not really preferred these days, but it still exists. And I, as the head of a private voluntary agency, have been the recipient of this type of philanthropy, which doesn't add up in most cases to a lot of charity and to a lot of giving. Another approach is to take corporate social responsibility and to incorporate it into the business's strategy. And I think that this is the type that we see more of these days. And the latest manifestation of social responsibility is often called creating shared value systems, that the employees of the organization, the leadership, the stockholders, the trustees, the board people, all have a common view of where the company should be going and what its responsibilities are to the community. So I want to come back to this in terms of these different models. But I also want to look at three major corporations to show the types of things that they have been doing that are considered to be good programs of social responsibility. Now, some of these companies may be a little bit of controversial, and the first one, I'm sure, is controversial, but I still want to treat it because I think it's an important company. So the three sort of case examples of corporate responsibility that I want to deal with today are, one, the Coca-Cola Corporation. I'm from Atlanta. Coca-Cola's home is in Atlanta. And I've been the beneficiary of a lot of the generosity of the Coca-Cola Company, both in my current job and also in terms of being the head of Africare and working in Africa, and I want to come back to that. The second company is an Ohio company, which I think has done a fantastic job. And I think that most of us are not aware of what they're doing and how they're doing it, but they're doing it the right way. And I think I represent a very good example of how corporate responsibilities can have a positive impact, especially on people in the developing world. And that is Ohio's own Procter & Gamble company. And I want to come back to that company. And the third example is an African company. And I'm sure that no one in this room, including myself, ever heard of this company until recently. And I think what they're doing in the area of corporate responsibility is out of this world. It's really fantastic. But who would ever think, or who would have ever thought, that an African country could be doing so much good to so many people, and its own way of doing that is really a very interesting model within itself. So that company is called the Econet Company, and it's a telecommunications company that's working in Southern Africa, East Africa, West Africa. It's in Latin America, it's in Europe, and it's also in China. But it's a major company that's really building up and has made the CEO of the corporation a very rich man. But being rich, but also generous. Let's go back and take a look at the Coca-Cola Company. We all know that Coca-Cola Company is the world's largest beverage company. providing consumers with more than 500 sparkling and still brands of drinks and sodas and water. The company's portfolio features $15 billion brands. Each one of these brands is worth over $1 billion a year. Diet Coke, Fanta, Sprite, Coca-Cola Zero, Vitamin Water, Powerade, Minute Maid, Simply Georgia, Delval, globally, etc. Coke is acknowledged as the #1 sparkling beverage, ready-to-drink coffees and juices in the world. What have they done in terms of corporate social responsibility? The company has focused its initiatives on things that reduce the company's environmental impact, supports active, healthy living, seeks to create a safe, inclusive work environment for its associates, and enhances the economic development of communities where it operates. Coke ranks among the world's top 10 private employers with more than 700,000 employees in the world. Coke is Africa's largest employer and the largest investor on the whole continent of Africa, to give you an idea of their reach. Since 2011, the company has developed a sustainability framework for its marketing strategy. Formerly, they had 7 sort of themes: live positively, and now which focused on sustainability of efforts into 3 main areas that they focus on: people, communities, and environment. What have been some of the efforts of the Coca-Cola Company and its 275 bottlers throughout the world? The production of fully reduced, low-calorie and no-calorie sparkling beverages, waters, juices, juice drinks, sport drinks, energy drinks, teas, coffee, milk, and soy-based beverages. The production of more than 800 low or no-calorie options, nearly 25% of its global portfolio. And this is where we get into controversy, because we all know that we look upon Coke as being bad. Drinking Coke is terrible. It's bad for your stomach, it's bad for your health, it's bad for everything. But Coke is coming up with these new products, zero and so forth, and low-calorie drinks. Its big business now is pure water, which has no sugar in it. And so that's how it's beginning to try to change its image. And I say try because this whole thing about Coke and its detrimental effects on health is still a major issue that the company has to contend with. But they're working at it. They're trying to do something about it. And since 2000, the company's average calories per serving has decreased by 9% globally. So this is something that they're working at. It's a work in progress, reducing the sugar content, taking out these products and making it less adverse to the consumer's health. Here's another thing they're doing. The company currently sponsors more than 280 physical activity and nutrition education programs in more than 115 countries, with a goal to provide at least one such program in the more than 200 countries where it operates by 2015. So they're getting people to take exercise and have exercise programs and trying to improve the quality of health of people by these types of nutrition and health programs that they sponsor. The company also has announced 5 by 20 initiative to enable the economic empowerment of 5 million women, entrepreneurs, with its chain value by something around 2020 of achieving that objective. In 2011, the company and its foundation had given back around $123 million to improve the standard of living for people living around the world. This is a 21% increase over the year before. So one can say that here's a multi-billion-dollar company, they should be given more, but at least they are giving up to $125 million a year. And then the issue comes, shouldn't they be able to do more? The world's 10th largest company, and yet they're only providing something like $125 million in terms of corporate social responsibility programs. But I think if you were to add up all of their programs together, I'm sure that the probably figure would become much larger than the figure that's given in terms of their philanthropy. So what is Coke all about? It's mainly water and sugar. So what are they trying to do to improve their image about water? They want to become water neutral by 2020. What does that mean? For all of the water that they use for their products, they want to replace that water by finding potable drinking water for people living in various areas of the world. So for whatever they use for their product, they're going to replace it with drinkable water in terms of helping people to find potable water in various areas of the world. The record shows that they've done over 382 community water projects in some 94 countries around the world, and have established partnerships with such organizations as the World Wildlife Federation, United States Agency for International Development, the Nature Conservancy, Africare, and CARE, which are very large private organizations. So Coke has been very active in digging wells and purification of water and those kinds of projects and sanitation projects to improve the quality of life for people living in the various communities where it sells its products. In 2011, the water use ration in the company's manufacturing operations achieved its targets of a 20% reduction based upon a 2004 baseline. So in 7 years, they've reduced their usage of water in their products by 20%, which is phenomenal. It's interesting to see that they have been able to achieve that goal. Let's take a look at Ohio's own Procter & Gamble company and what have they been doing. It's a Fortune 500 company, we all know that. In 2011, P&G earned $84 billion in sales and employed 127,000 people in 80 countries and sold products in 180 countries. The corporation earned more than $10 billion in net earnings and has built a portfolio of $25 billion brands. Again, the same as Coke. Each one of the brands is worth well over $1 billion in sales, which is phenomenal. Each of which has contributed to over $10 billion in sales per year. Some of their products that we all know well include Pampers, Gillette, Tide, Ariel, Downy, Pantene, Head & Shoulders, Olay, Oral-B, Crest, Dawn, Fairy, and Always. In its own literature, P&G states its company's values as follows. P&G is its people, and the values we live. We attract and recruit the finest people in the world. We build our organizations from within, promoting and rewarding people without regard to any differences related to performance. We act on conviction that men and women of P&G will always be our most important asset. A very strong statement of believing in its employees, believing in its people. This is our mantra. This is where we are. And it is paying off for them. The mission states
its mission statement states, quote, to provide branded products and services of super quality and value that improve the lives of the world's consumers, now and for generations to come. The values, purposes, and principles of P&G show how the company has planned out its strategy in accordance with its social responsibility principles. Sustainability is embedded in all of its efforts and actions. And the 5 strategic strategies for them include the following: products, operations, social responsibility, employers, and stakeholders. Let's look at what they have done in some of these areas. As far as product innovation is concerned, they have developed products in such a way that they are innovative, technological, and environmentally friendly. Technologically, they believe in life cycle approach of product making. For example, Ariel, a leading laundry detergent, technology used has made it possible to reduce 70% of the energy consumption when clothes are being washed. In addition, water consumption has been reduced by 40 to 50% in the company's products. In its operations, P&G has reduced since July 2001 energy consumption by 48%, carbon emission by 52%, water disposal by 53%, and water usage by 52%. These are phenomenal statistics for any corporation, but it shows you the direction that they're moving and what they're interested in, what they're interested in accomplishing. My own contact with the organization dealt with the question of what they have done to provide safe and potable water for people around the world. They've delivered 2.9 billion liters of clean drinking water through the opening of wells and through the Pure Children's Safe Drinking Water Program. This product that you now see on the market in the United States was first used overseas in Africa, the Pure, P-U-R. You'll see it on the shelves in some of the drugstores. I first encountered that product when it didn't even exist in the United States, and they were using it to clean contaminated water in Africa by taking just a little bit of that product, putting it in the filthiest water you can imagine, and the water coming up clear and pure. I was amazed. But they have really had an impact on potable water and the people living in Africa who really need and cherish water. And when you can provide sources of water that are easily accessible, you're also reducing the burden on women in terms of their labor and providing them with accessibility to be able to do other things. Let me just talk a little bit about the African company that I was talking about. Econet Wireless, diversified telecommunications company with operations and investment Africa, Europe, South America, and the East Pacific Rim, offering products and services in the core areas of mobile and fixed telephone services, broadband, satellite, and fiber optic networks. It is a privately held group and is not listed on any stock exchange. Econet Wireless was founded by the Zimbabwean Srive Masiwa, who lives in Johannesburg, South Africa. The group includes the following companies: Econet Wireless International. It also includes Econet Wireless UK, Econet Solar, World Stream and Services, Technology Capital Partners, USA, with operations in New Zealand, Bolivia, the Dominican Republic, Zimbabwe, and even the United States, the United Kingdom, and various parts of West and Eastern Africa. These various operations in several countries have more than 25 million customers and operate on an estimated $3 billion in annual reserves. Mr. Masiwe and his wife are very strong Christians, and believed they should share their wealth with those that are less fortunate. He has decided that 5% of all corporate profits generated by these various businesses will be given back to the underserved population in various areas of the world. 5% of all profits goes into social corporate responsibility. And what has been the impact? They have set up a foundation that has several trusts. One of these trusts, the Kapperman Trust, caters for the education of health, nutrition, and psychosocial well-being of some 44,000 orphan children in Africa. 44,000 children. One corporation educating orphan children in various parts of Africa. Complete education, all schools' fees are paid, uniforms, the whole works, for 44,000 children in Africa. Amazing. Another trust provides scholarships to help train a new generation of entrepreneurs who are innovative, strategic, and committed to the restoration and development of Africa. So he has a business training program. Maybe Findlay can help in that regard in terms of bringing some of these students here to pursue a master's degree in business in here. But here's a man who has the foresight and the vision that says he wants to change the world and wants to change how Africans go about doing business in the world. A third trust supports environmental protection initiatives by encouraging the use of renewable and economic friendly energies by installing green base stations and distributing solar chargers, solar lanterns, solar-powered mobile handsets, solar panels, and solar-powered traffic lights in Africa. The trust also supports research and helps farmers to increase their production and agriculture. And one other trust helps and provides free antiviral drugs for HIV/AIDS victims. So one can see that the breadth and depth of this corporation's generosity is quite broad. At Morehouse, in his belief of training a new group of leaders, he has established an education fund where he is sending Africans from South Africa, Zimbabwe, Burundi, and from other parts of Africa to the United States to be trained and paying all of their school fees. The college that I'm working at, Morehouse College, has been the beneficiary of one of these grants, $6.4 million to train 40 students through the BA level with a free education. His wife said, "You can't do this just for men, you have to do something for women." So he's doing 40 women at Spelman College in Atlanta. That's another $6.47 million to train African women to be leaders of their own society. But what I've tried to do by this lecture is to give you some examples of what various corporations are doing in the area of social responsibility and reflect on my own personal experience of dealing with ethical issues for non-governmental organizations and some of the corporate organizations that I have come in contact with. One thing that we can say that I haven't seen yet, and maybe Dr. Sears or some of the people who were here in the business school, no one has tried to quantify what is the profitability that's generated by social corporate responsibility programs. They may have done it in terms of individual companies and so forth, but I haven't seen a broad study of this, and that would be an interesting area to see. Does corporate social responsibility pay off? And that's a real question that we don't know the answer to. But some people would say it doesn't matter whether it pays off or not. It generates goodwill, it helps to recruit people, and it helps to give the company name a good brand that it can improve and establish better relations in the communities that they work and serve. I hope that my remarks and examples will stimulate a conversation and a dialogue on corporate social responsibility. We are at the beginning and not at the end. Let's see where we go from here. Thank you.